We all remember that moment, the moment when we first encountered our mediocrity. For the majority of us, it likely occurred between the ages of 18 and 22. If you're not there yet, don't worry, it's coming. Up until that point, our vision for our life was predicated on the encouragement others gave us. Parents, teachers, role models, all of these adults telling us, you're special, you can be whatever you want to be if you just set your mind to it. If you really want something and you work hard towards it, you can achieve it. You can be the next Picasso, the next Einstein, the next president of the United States. If you do the right things and you make the right choices, you can be remarkable. But somewhere around 20 years old, when you're no longer in high school, when you're no longer receiving the constant uplifting, reality sets in. You begin to look around at your peers, getting degrees, beginning their careers, starting families, and you're right in line with them. Maybe a little behind, maybe a little ahead, but overall in the same neighborhood. Then you take a look at the world at large and you realize that the vast majority of people are right there too. The truth is, most of us are pretty much in those same shoes. We're not A-list Hollywood actors. We're not platinum selling artists. We're not in the 1%. And if we're none of those things, then it can only mean one thing, that we're remarkably unremarkable. Having this realization is a difficult thing for people, and it's even more difficult to accept because even though we never admit it, the majority of us firmly believe that we're better than the average person. We're smarter, we're better leaders, we're more effective communicators. And don't run to the comments saying I'm just speaking for myself, because this goes for most of the population. In psychology, there is a cognitive bias known as illusory superiority, or the above average effect. This bias states that people often overestimate their own abilities and skills when compared to others. Since the early 80s, there have been countless studies that show this time and time again. When surveyed anonymously, most people tend to rate themselves above average in areas such as driving ability, academic performance, leadership ability, and even just general health behaviors. In fact, early research showed that between 70 and 90% of people believe themselves to be better than the average person in these categories, which is hilarious because by definition, average means that most people tend to fall near or at that level. But of course, as humans, we need to believe that we don't. We need to believe that somehow, some way, we are above the average Joe, that we are superior to him, even if only slightly. But not only is this untrue, even if it were true, the remarkableness we think we possess wouldn't even matter at the end of our lives. Even those that are remarkable benefit from reminding themselves of this constantly. Marcus Aurelius was a master practitioner of this. In his Meditations, he wrote, "Alexander the Great and his mule driver both died, and the same thing happened to both. They were both absorbed alike into the life force of the world, or dissolved alike into atoms." But this wasn't meant as a downplaying of what Alexander the Great accomplished, or even as a pessimistic outlook on life. Instead, Marcus Aurelius was simply reminding himself that even those that are considered great will ultimately face the same fate, the great equalizer known as death. Because of that, there is no point in solely focusing on being remarkable or leading an exceptional life. Instead, you should just live for yourself and focus on your own virtues. And luckily for us, this same practice is also the way to achieve more happiness and contentment in life. In his book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, Mark Manson writes, "Most of us are pretty average at most things we do. Even if you're exceptional at one thing, chances are you're average or below average at most other things. That's just the nature of life." He later goes on to write, "The vast majority of your life will be boring and not noteworthy, and that's okay." Manson encourages his readers to stop trying to be special or unique or some sort of undiscovered genius. He believes that the secret to happiness and fulfillment is to begin measuring yourself by the more mundane aspects of who you are. How good of a student you are, how good of a friend you are, how good of a partner you are. Things that society may not necessarily reward you for, but things that you can find contentment in and that those around you will appreciate. Instead of constantly striving for a remarkable and exciting life, maybe we should always be striving to live a life that's simply good enough. So much of modern life is performative. Curated resumes, optimized workdays, idealized relationships, the majority of which are a facade. It's people putting on an act for the public. It's a performance. But when you embrace a life that's simply good enough, you stop performing your idea of a remarkable life and you start actually living a real one. You embrace your flaws, you accept your failures, you allow yourself to be unproductive from time to time for the sake of personal enjoyment. When you seek to be remarkable, the best, the smartest, the wealthiest, any failure to achieve or uphold these identities becomes a threat to your sense of self. But when you accept that you, in your purest form, are just a regular person, like everyone else, you become steadfast in who you are. It doesn't matter if you're average, you're still you. It doesn't matter if you're rejected, you're still you. It doesn't matter if you win, lose, or draw, you're still you. In an unforeseen plot twist, it turns out that the very qualities you gain from accepting your mediocrity, from embracing that you're not remarkable, are the very ones that make you remarkably you. Now, I want to emphasize a super important point that I've ignored up until now, and that's that striving to live a life that's just good enough doesn't mean that you should stop chasing your dreams. It doesn't mean that you should stop seeking improvement or that you should just give up and remain complacent with your life. It simply means that you should embrace the various seasons of life and find joy in where you are as you work to improve yourself and your situation. Life doesn't always go as planned, and embracing a good life simply allows us to choose happiness and contentment even if our life doesn't turn out exactly the way that we hoped. But I break that down in more detail in this video, so consider watching that next. But with that, thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for weekly videos, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.